Mr.FalconPunch!
Now, I'm a bit hesitant when it comes to starting a new weekly Shonen Jump series, since I've been burned plenty of times in the past with series I enjoyed being cancelled before they really had time to breathe. Though the cutthroat nature for new series makes sense considering that Weekly Shonen Jump is not only one of the most popular manga magazines out there, but also home to some of the most iconic and influential series around. For years, I have avoided a new Jump series till I knew it was safe to start, usually through some anime announcement of some kind. That way I didn't have to go through the disappointment of a series being axed and my time with it feeling wasted. However, recently I've been really interested in checking out the latest series of Weekly Shonen Jump, mainly because a lot of Jump's heavy hitters are gone, including some of the more recent successes like Demon Slayer, Promised Neverland, and Haikyuu. The current hits of the magazine that aren't planned to end anytime soon are One Piece, Hero Academia, Dr. Stone, Black Clover, and I guess technically Hunter x Hunter, which is still a good handful of heavy hitters, but considering Weekly Shonen Jump's legacy, I imagine there needs to be more. Which is when I got curious to see which of the many new series coming out on Jump have the potential to become the next big thing. Biting the bullet and not caring if my time gets wasted on a potential new series getting axed early. And boy oh boy, do we have quite the hefty load of new series to go through here. For this video, I'll be taking a look at new series that came on Jump in late 2019 and early 2020. As of the recording of this video, even more new Jump series have popped up, like Magu-chan God of Destruction, Hard-Boiled Cop and Dolphin, Ayakashi Triangle, and Me and Roboko. However, I'll talk about those in a follow-up video, since like I mentioned earlier, there is already a lot to talk about, as in this video I'm going to be talking about 10 different series. Also real quick, I won't be talking about Chainsaw Man here, since I've already talked about that series in a previous video, and my opinion on it hasn't really changed since then, with Chainsaw Man being one of the most unique and badass mangas that come out in Jump in quite some time. But with that out of the way, let's dive into these new manga series. First off, unfortunately I have to start with the series that are already the victims of the mighty Shonen Jump axe, being Zipman and Guardian of the Witch. Starting with Zipman, it was a series I actually really enjoyed. Unfortunately, it was just rushed out of Jump, which is a shame. The story followed a hot-blooded guy named Kaname who's super into a tokusatsu show called Jackman, whose titular hero he aspires to be like. And hey, already that's a character I could get behind. However, one day a giant robot attacks his town where he is suddenly reunited with his brainy twin brother, who was thought to be dead, Koshiro, who is currently now a dog-like robot in which Kaname can get into like a mech and become the superhero Zipman. Together, the twins protect their town from an evil group with similar mech suits, but based off various Japanese pop culture icons like magical girls, kaiju, RPG heroes, and even Devilman. This manga had a really fun start. A hot-blooded action series with tokusatsu and mecha influences is something totally up my alley, and just so full of potential, but unfortunately the series was axed before it was really given a proper chance. Also, having two people working together as one to be heroes, with one being brainy and the other one being headstrong, reminds me a lot of a tokusatsu favorite of mine, Kamen Rider Double, which I've made a video on in the past, so maybe check that out. While the action may have had a lot of energy and impact to it, the story was sadly rushed. As midway through Zipman, you can definitely feel the direction of the series was just zipping off to the end, which really hurt the overall quality of the series. I've seen some people claim that Zipman didn't do so hot because Jump already had another superhero series with Hero Academia, but Hero Academia is a lot more inspired by American superheroes, whereas Zipman is a lot more Japanese inspired. Not to mention the different setting and powers. It's an unfortunate axe, and I do hope the mangaka behind this series, Yusaku Shibata, doesn't give up and tries again sometime soon. After all, Hirokoshi, who Shibata had previously worked under, had 2 Jump series axed before he struck big with Hero Academia. So all the best to him and Zipman. Moving on, we have the other axe series being Guardian of the Witch. Taking place in a fantasy world where humans are terrorized by evil creatures known simply as evils. While there are knights to fight against the evils, the most effective against them are the witches, young women who gain magical powers after being injected with seeds of evil. Despite witches being given a life of luxury, even having their own guardians to protect them, they are still mistrusted by many for having traces of evil and the potential to go berserk if left unchecked. Which takes us to our main character Fafuna, who one day is ordered to kill the witchy guards Manasufa, which despite finding her as a spoiled brat at times, he refuses, escaping with her and becoming an enemy of the kingdom, and vows to restore Manafusa's humanity, as well as get rid of the concept of witches. Now, this series was just alright for me. I guess the concept was kinda cool, but nothing here was all that standout. The characters weren't bad, but I didn't really get that much of a special impression off of them. And the action and designs were so-so, which I find disappointing for a series with witches and demons. It just felt a bit bland. I wound up reading 5 chapters of the series and then putting on hold, so I could read the other new Jump series, but by the time I got back to it, it had already been axed. Which I guess I wasn't too surprised with, considering how bland I was finding it, but at the same time, it's always sad to see a series get axed. But with that, it is now time to check out the new series that, as of the recording of this video, are still coming out on Jump. First off, we have Time Paradox Ghostwriter, an interesting series following mangaka Teppei Sasaki, who is desperately trying to create his very own weekly Shonen Jump manga. However, all his drafts keep on getting rejected time and time again, till one day he eventually breaks down and is on the verge of quitting manga. Before that can happen, an issue of Shonen Jump from 10 years in the future suddenly appears in a strange microwave, where he discovers the series known as White Knight, a manga that absolutely blows Teppei's mind. Thinking this whole situation was a stress-induced dream, he copies what he read of White Knight and submits it with very impressive results. White Knight turns out to be such a hit, it is set to instantly publish on Weekly Shonen Jump. However, as it turns out, the original creator of White Knight, Itsuki Aino, is present in this time, and goes off to confront Teppei for publishing the manga that she was currently making the rough draft for. And from here, we see Teppei learning how to deal with being an imposter, especially with Itsuki becoming his assistant, as well as try to uncover the real reason as to why he's being sent these Jump issues from the future. Already, this manga definitely has one of the most interesting stories out of all the Jump newbies, with its mysteries and possible thrills going off the latest chapters, and I do look forward to reading it each week. Seeing Teppei's internal struggle with imposter syndrome is as gripping as the Time Paradox mystery itself, especially with a lot of the recent chapters expanding a bit more on Itsuki as a character and the mystery of the Jump issues. If you like a good sci-fi mystery, then Time Paradox Ghostwriter would be a series to keep your eye on, and I hope the manga itself has a good future on Jump. Up next, we have Bone Collection, which takes place in a world of yokai and exorcists. Our main character Kazami comes from a family of strong and respected exorcists. However, he himself is pretty weak, though he does try his best. Despite not being talented in a lot of exorcist arts, he does have access to a powerful spell which draws power from yokai, that creates monstrous weapons and gadgets. However, that spell is deemed taboo amongst the exorcist world, as it's said to come at the cost of the user's humanity, though not that much research has been done on it. One day while walking about, a strange girl falls from the sky named Pyra, who may seem like a cute girl, but she's actually the yokai Gashadukuro, a pretty notorious yokai who despite that just wants to become human, to which she promises Kazami to marry him if he helps her to do so. While Kazami doesn't necessarily agree, but with his good and slightly perverted nature, agrees to help out Pyra, while also borrowing her power to take on yokai and become a better exorcist. Now, nothing about this series has really wowed me yet, as so far it's been simple and fun, with elements of this series that I feel, if given room to breathe, could become something pretty sweet. First off, I love seeing yokai in manga, and not just that, but series with cool monster designs I'm always down for. The concept of using yokai energy to create weapons is creative and helps spice up action, with Kazami already creating a pretty sweet bone collection of weapons, which I imagine will grow and upgrade over the course of the series, perhaps even meeting other yokai to draw power from. My main hope is that if the series goes on long enough, we'll get some super cool bone armor power up, cause that would be freaking sweet. Outside the action in yokai, the characters are also likable enough, with the relationship between Kazami and Pyra having potential to be interesting, while also being fine characters individually, though I do hope we get to see more of their backstories, in order to give them a bit more character. There's also a fun cast of side characters with Kazami's weird but very loving family, Rino, who is Kazami's sort of stuck-up childhood friend, and so far my favorite, Akifuya Abe, who may look like this terrifying but goofy muscle man, but it's like some weird armor thing hiding a cute lady who happens to be one of the most respected exorcists around. I just really like the whole concept of the character and hope we get to see more of her. Again, nothing about this series has really wowed me, but I believe it has potential, if it's given more time to develop its lead characters as well as abilities. Moving on, we have Miitama Security's Spirit Busters, which follows Rena Haze, a girl who's a hub of supernatural activity with hundreds of ghosts swarming her pretty much all the time, though no one really besides her is able to see them. That is until one day she comes across Miitama Joe, a security agent, with the pun being that Rei in Japanese means ghost. Miitama may be a professional in getting rid of ghosts, however there's one thing that usually hinders his job, and that's because he's super afraid of ghosts. However, whenever Miitama cries out in fear, he unleashes a great psychic power within him capable of doing some of the most extra shit you've seen. Like how he just stylishly twirls his gun for a really long time like an absolute madman before actually taking the damn shot. Most of the time, this huge display kinda winds up being a miss, though in the end, Miitama gets the job done. The series follows Miitama trying to exorcise some of the many spirits that stick around Rena, and it is a funny series. I wouldn't say it's absolutely gut-busting, especially when compared to some of the other new Jump comedy series we'll be taking a look at later on in this video, but I've been having a good time with Miitama. A series like this has its appeal come from its gags, and while maybe a bit repetitive in the beginning, I feel that they still manage to be really funny with loads of over-the-top reactions, subversions, and just funny looking panels and characters. The comedy does get enhanced a bit once we are introduced to more wacky spirits and exorcists, and personally to me, I just find the overall aesthetic of the series kind of comforting and familiar. It's hard for me to put my finger on it considering that both this series and its mangaka are pretty new to Jump, but the whole vibe of the series I feel like I've experienced before, and I don't mean this in a way to call the series cliche or anything. It just has a very Shonen Jump comedy vibe to it, if that makes any sense. I've struggled many times in writing this part of the script to properly explain my feelings of the overall aesthetic of Miitama, but usually it just comes out as some weird incoherent rambling, so I just hope I'm not the only one that feels this way about the aesthetic of the series. But despite all that, if you just want a simple comedy series to pass the time, then Miitama is a good enough series. And now it's time to talk about a newcomer to Jump that I feel has enough going on for it to become a heavy hitter, being Undead Unluck, taking place in a world where people known as negators are cursed with strange abilities that negate the rules of the earth. Bringing us to one of our main characters. Fuko is a girl with the negator ability of Unluck that can negate the luck of anyone that touches her bare skin, which has caused her a life of misery, causing her to start off the series with her about to kill herself. That is until she meets a zombie-like guy named Andy, who's trying to do the same thing. However, the catch is, Andy is also a negator with the negator ability Undead, which causes him to pretty much never die. Once Andy learns of Fuko's ability, he takes great interest in her, hoping her ability would be able to cause a stroke of bad luck so over the top he might just be able to finally die. The two later on join the Union, an organization made of negators who complete quests around the world under the orders of the supernatural book known as Apocalypse, where they monitor, rescue, or fight other negators or go on quests for Uma, mysterious animals or objects that possess great supernatural power. With each completed mission given by Apocalypse, the Union gains power in hopes of one day being able to go up against the creator of Apocalypse and the cause of many of the rules that trouble the earth. But this does come with a risk, as failed missions can lead to punishments, like unleashing an entire alien invasion. I see a lot of potential in this series, as you have tons of unique powers, with the negators each having different rules and conditions for their abilities. Stakes are high, as missions can have destructive penalties, not just towards the members of the Union, but the Earth itself. Luckily though, the rewards for a job well done are also very interesting, as in a recent chapter, the Uma known as Language was neutralized by Apocalypse, which in turn unified all the languages in the world to English. Seeing this punishment and reward system, along with the Union's main goal to face off against bigger threats, is really engaging, keeping you on your toes on what to expect next in this already very chaotic series. Then of course we have our characters. The Union is full of badass and insane characters who for the most part we haven't seen a whole lot of just yet, as the focus is mainly on Fuko and Andy, who are both really fun. Fuko has had a really tough life due to unluck. However, thanks to Andy, she's finally able to live a little bit more, traveling around the world and being more open to people, which is nice to see. And then we have Andy, the badass psycho who just can't die. He's a really fun character to watch, as he's super reckless and unpredictable, especially in battle, as with his hyper regeneration, the guy is constantly shooting parts of his body off rocket punch style. Only his body parts don't come back, they just regenerate after he slices them off before the regeneration shoots them out, which is pretty hardcore. I've mentioned it in previous videos, but I love seeing regeneration in action series, since I feel it, along with psychic powers, are just ripe for creating awesome and creative action set pieces, which Andy finds himself in a lot. And with Fuko's unluck ability, the chaos and destruction of these fights are just amplified to the max. On top of being fun to watch, there's a lot of mystery to Andy as a character, as he's been alive for hundreds of years and has some fuzzy memories of his early days. The only thing I dislike about Andy is that, especially in the earlier chapters, he's a bit grabby with Fuko. Fuko's unluck ability activates when people touch her bare skin, however the more intimate the touch, the greater the dosage of bad luck destruction is, which leads to Andy groping her quite a lot and even proposing that the two have sex in order to get the worst blast of bad luck imaginable. And yeah, it's pretty scummy, but thankfully it kinda calms down after a while, and the two try building up a more proper partnership with possible romance. My only other complaint is that while I do respect and appreciate the unique action of the series, I have to say sometimes I do find it hard to follow, though nothing too bad to really detract from the overall experience. Among the new action series Jump has right now, this is definitely one of the most promising, thanks to its unique setting and action alongside some interesting bits of world building. Continuing on, we have my favorite new Jump series being Moriking, which has actually been the first series I read each week when the new Jump chapters come out on the Shonen Jump app, since it's always just a really fun way to start off my binge of the latest chapters. Moriking stars Sho Aikawa, a bug-loving kid, and his older sister Shoko, who's not so bug-loving. Together, the two see Sho's pet beetle, Moriking, transform into a beautiful prince-like man before their very eyes. It is then revealed that as a larva, Moriking was chosen to become a candidate to become the king of the forest, and rule over all bugs, setting out to survive in the human world to prove himself worthy. However, due to the Aikawa family taking care of him, he decides to stay with them as their pet beetle, while also pursuing his goal as king. Through the course of the series, we see Moriking get into various wild situations as a handsome bugman, while coming across other candidates for king of the forest, like this cute praying mantis girl who becomes Shoko's friend, and this delinquent-like butterfly dude. I just love this series. It's been consistently hilarious, with me laughing out loud each chapter, sometimes multiple times. Plenty of the gags still stick with me, and just seeing these bug people act like normal pet bugs will just never not be gut-busting hilarious to me. I've been getting a lot of laughs out of this recent character introduced, whose name is Ko, another bug person who becomes Moriking's royal retainer. He's just a sweet boy, but he's also a cockroach, and he's fully aware on how much humans are disgusted by his kind, and he's constantly apologizing for it. It's both sad and hilarious. On top of the comedy, I really like its vibe. It's simple, it's fun, and very outlandish. The story kinda reminds me of Zatch Bell, only instead of having demon children, we have bugs trying to become king. While there is glimmers here and there, as well as definite potential for action in the series, so far up to this point it's been all comedy, which I'm totally loving, but if it does go down a more action-oriented route, it would be fun to see. Though if that does actually happen, I really hope we get like a heroic grasshopper character. If you know, you know. Moriking has been the most fun I've had with any of the manga on this video, and I really hope it sticks around, as when I hear people talk about the new Jump titles, Moriking is sadly never brought up, but it's one I definitely highly recommend. And the next Jump newbie we'll be talking about here is Mission Yozakura Family, telling the story of Taiyo Asano, a shy high schooler who mourns the death of his family, with the only person he ever really opens up to being his childhood friend, Mutsumi Yozakura, who is the daughter of one of the world's top spy families, which includes an extremely over-the-top older brother, Kyoichiro, that wants to keep Taiyo away from Mutsumi using very violent methods. The only way Taiyo can manage to survive this is to marry Mutsumi, so he can officially be part of the family and be safe from Kyoichiro's wrath. However, when joining a spy family, one has to learn the way of the spy, leading Taiyo to begin his own spy training with the various other Yozakura siblings. While I can see the appeal of this series with superpowered spies who honestly just feel more like hitmen because of just how damn over the top they are, along with a large cast of cute but violent characters, as well as the budding romance between Taiyo and Mutsumi, for some reason I just couldn't get that into it. I don't think it's a bad series, again I can understand the appeal of it, but it's just not for me. At first I thought it was just because I was burnt out on reading all these new Jump manga for this video, but even when I tried going back after a bit of a break, nothing really engaged me with it. Despite that though, if anything I mentioned regarding the appeal of this series appeals to you, then I would give Yozakura Family a try. With that, we are close to wrapping it up here with our next new Jump series being Mashle, Magic and Muscles. A series that pits magic against pure brute strength as our main character, Mash Van Dead, which is a cool ass name by the way, has been sent to Easton Magic Academy after an incident that happened in his village. Despite him having no ability to produce magic at all, he's able to get by with pure, raw, physical strength, with his goal in life to be surrounded by cream puffs as well as become the Divine Visionary, the most prestigious of rankings in Easton Magic Academy, given to the most exceptional of its students, which he plans on achieving by crushing magic with his brute strength. Now, by looking at the series and hearing its concept, you may say that this is One Punch Man meets Harry Potter, and really, I feel anyone that talks about this series says the same thing, but it's like, honestly the best way to put it. The art here has that one style to it, especially with the faces. MASH also has a similar vibe to Saitama as a character, without totally being an exact clone of him. A good portion of the humor is One Punch Man-like as well, especially with its facial expressions and reaction to gags, though there is some unique comedy here too, with MASH using his strength in place of magic, such as fluttering his legs in order to replicate flying on a broomstick, or simply just flinging a wand really hard during a magic duel. I definitely got a good amount of laughs out of this series, but after a while it kind of got stale. And with the story not being too interesting, along with a pretty lackluster cast of characters, it just feels that the series never really overcomes its funny premise of One Punch Man but fantasy, which even then it's only in the most basic concept alone, as a lot of the other elements that made One Punch Man successful, like over-the-top fights, the satire and celebration of both shonen and superhero genres, and an amazing variety of badass side characters are just not present in Mashle. And you know what? It could be fine, but so far from what I've read, it just doesn't have anything else going on for it, which for me is just not enough to keep on reading this series. But despite that, from what I've seen online, there is a good amount of people that really enjoy the series. So if this just seems like something you'd be into, then I would suggest giving it a read. But finally, we have the last new Jump manga for this video being Agravity Boys, which Viz Media calls a brotastic space adventure, which is pretty accurate. However, a better summary would be that Agravity Boys takes place in a distant future following the cosmic misadventures of 4 young astronauts, being Saga, the hot-blooded pilot, Chris, the doctor who's often confused for being a cute girl, Geralt, the physicist, who happens to be both super smart and super stupid at the same time, and finally Baba, the buff engineer who's also a massive pervert. What started as a space voyage to explore the planet Alpha Jumbro turns into something a whole lot more as they discover that during their journey to Jumbro, Earth was swallowed by a black hole, leaving them as the sole survivors of the human race, and considering that they're all dudes, they might just be the last humans left in the universe. However, there to help them, but mostly just mess with them, is a higher being from another dimension, who the boys casually nickname HB, who puts our boys in some weird situations, either by giving them weird items like a gender reverse fluid, or just plunging them into another planet for flirting contests. I've seen a lot of people compare the series to Grand Blue, which personally I haven't checked out yet, but it seems like something I'd really enjoy. But much like Grand Blue, Agravity Boys follows a bunch of horny guys getting themselves into wild situations, but this time in space. Along with Moriking, this manga is definitely my favorite comedy amongst the new Shonen Jump lineup. Though unlike Moriking, Agravity Boys is a lot more cruder with its comedy, and there's tons of bizarre and hilarious situations to be found here, such as the time where the crew had Chris become an intergalactic streamer, whose cute looks unites the galaxy. And then there's also plenty of fun misadventures of the high dimensional being, and just the entirety of surviving and exploring Alpha Jumbro. Like in one chapter where the boys sacrifice each other one after the other to get Geralt to the bathroom, because the man can only shit in his custom toilet. Things get even crazier when it's revealed that there was another space voyage to Alpha Jumbro, only much to the disappointment of the Gravity Boys, it's just another crew of dudes. I've laughed out loud plenty of times while reading the series, and on top of the comedy we have a nice dosage of adventure, either in just exploring the wildlife of Alpha Jumbro, or occasionally getting to see other planets. And alongside all this, we just have a really likable cast of space bros. So if you're in the mood for a cosmic bro-tastic comedy, I highly recommend Agravity Boys. And with that, we have reached the end of this video, and it was super fun to make. My personal favorites here are Moriking, Undead Unluck, Time Paradox Ghost Rider, and Agravity Boys. And believe it or not, there's still new Jump series to talk about, though I'll give those series a bit of time before getting to them. But if you've been also keeping up to date with the new Jump series, tell me your favorites and thoughts on them down below. And with that, as always, I am Mr. FalconPunch. I hope you enjoyed this video, stay safe, and peace out.